You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. I'm your host, Saul Muerte, ready to dive back in again into another John Carpenter film, for which we have been dedicating this past season to the great director auteur. And this one's a bit of a troubling one in my eyes because it is the sequel to the great film Escape from New York, and that is called Escape from LA. And the reason why I find trouble with this one is, yes, it just doesn't marry up to the original, unfortunately. And this is partly of what I want to dissect and discuss in this episode for our podcast as we delve into Escape from LA. And why is that? Why did it not quite hit the mark? And maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think this film deserves more love than it should. In order to do that, though, I need to have a offsider with me to join me on the podcast chair next to me. And I'd like to welcome aboard for this podcast, Dr. Richard Lovegrove. Welcome aboard, sir.
Call me Snake.
Ah, okay, Snake.
Oh, no, you can Dr. Snake at least. Yeah.
Okay, welcome aboard, sir. How are you?
G'day. Oh, good to be aboard. Good to be back in LA.
Yeah, it's good. We'll have to escape it at some point, though.
Exactly. Yeah. Do it with their masks on.
Yes, yeah, it's like, they won't let me go. I've got 14 days.
No, you just shift Snake's eye patch down over your mouth.
Yeah, it might work.
Yeah, it's COVID prepared.
So here's the thing. So I obviously kind of was laying down some of my thoughts with that. And I will come back to Escape from New York and Escape from LA in a second, or now, because my computer's frozen. Oh no, yes, it is letting me go. Okay, cool. Because what I wanted to say before we kind of open up your views for a moment is that John Carpenter once reflected on this, saying Escape from LA is better than the first movie. 10 times better. That's
a quote by him.
Yeah, exactly. It's got more to it. It's more mature. It's got a lot more to it. I think some people didn't like it because they felt it was a remake, not a sequel. I suppose the old question of whether you like Rio Bravo or El Dorado better, they're essentially the same movie. They both had their strengths and weaknesses. I don't know. You never know why a movie's going to make it or not. People didn't want to see Escape that time, but they didn't really want to see The Thing. You just wait. You've got to give me a little while. People will say, what was wrong with me? Yeah.
That's great. Because obviously, this film probably got more of its flack because it was regarded as pretty much a remake of the first film, beat for beat, which I didn't so much find. Obviously, there's a lot of beat points, and I'd say the overall vibe feels exactly the same. There's nothing that's been told in this film that hasn't really been told in the previous film, and I think that's probably where people are going a bit awry there. But there seems to be a lot more input. This seems to be a lot more fun, a bigger world, and a bigger budget, obviously, within that. And coming from John Carpenter as well, his resume before this, I mean, is prolific, and after it even bigger. But it's something that, I think that the director is always going to love what they make, and he's made these choices for a reason. And I would argue that if you literally had to compare and say which one now filmically is better, regardless of going which one came first or anything like that objectively, it would be a hard choice because you've got a lot of pioneering roles, but also a lot of roles that are carried over into the next film, the Ernest Borgnine character being sort of tried on by different hats by the Steve Buscemi character in this film and other things. But then obvious like in They Live, you've got comments about society with the moments with the plastic surgeons and stuff like that, which we'll go into. Yeah. But I think overall, they're fun films, and I think that's what he knew they were, and I think that's what Kurt Russell knew that they were. I was about to say Russell Crowe there.
Russell Crowe, yeah.
Oh, be a different kind of film. Yeah, like recently, I found out for Jurassic Park, the first choice for that was Harrison Ford, but he turned it down, so they went with Sam Neill.
Wow, okay.
I don't know if he was their second choice, but apparently that was what's being now touted around.
Right.
How Iron Man was originally going to be Tom Cruise. which they're talking about a carryover universe like that. Same sort of thing with the Keaton-esque Batman. It's going to be fun.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Look, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because there's a lot of things. That here's the thing, right? I find, and we will go into the nuts and bolts of this and dissect it along the way. But my issue I find with Escape, aside from the fact that it has a few similar beats to Escape from New York, and doesn't serve up much anything new to the equation in result. But it's also it's a really patchy film. It feels like there's it could serve as little minuets along the way. It's not. It doesn't feel like a complete film. It feels like these little moments that occur within Snake Plissken's journey, and they just don't sew up nicely together to create a whole. And I think that's my big thing about it. Because sure, some of it is a bit fun. Some of it is so ludicrously far fetched and out there that it begs belief. But I just and I don't know. I don't know if saying it's just a fun film is enough of a carrier. If that was what Carpenter and Russell were going for, I don't know if that's got enough gravitas to carry a film, to be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that's also what is also obvious about this film. Starting with, I think I saw Escape from New York first, in order. But that started off in that same sort of patchy tone. Even from the beginning, the initial score that came in sort of got a bit tedious to me. Having said that, I was trying to stream this, and I had moments where it was just playing the audio and not playing the video, and allowed to do that. I was waiting for it to change or key change or something. But having said that, it gave me that same sense of Day of the Dead when that starts off with the same synth sort of sounds. Maybe that's just because of that, but in where Day of the Dead's, I don't see it as patchy, but it's like you don't see connecting through lines because every character is for themselves and it's so independent. Whereas this world seems obviously the main character is by himself and an independent person, but some unity within this world. There seems to be without. Actually, sort of reminds me very much more so of Dawn of the Dead, where it starts off in the news reporting. Having said that, no, it doesn't, because in that you establish right away what the world is. You've got the two reporters. Sorry, but you know what I mean. It's patchy, it's broken up, but in the way that the film works, I excuse that because it was a first film, not a first film like a first filmmakers, but it was trying to communicate an idea that was larger than life. I saw it like a Star Wars, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Big budget, low budget film.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And that's I think you're right. And I just, my thought process just then was like, I wonder also, and this might be something that we kind of dissect along the way as well, is that is it resting too much on the iconic presence of Snake Plissken as a character too, to try and kind of carry the film through? Because that is part of the appeal from Escape from New York, and Kurt Russell to boot playing that.
Absolutely.
So there's a few things I think going on there.
Well, I did read something where this film, the main reason it was made, and it could just be hearsay or a reporter, but it said that one of the main reasons it was made was because Kurt Russell really wanted to play the role again. It was the most adventurous or action-packed role that he really wanted to play with. And part of the sequences in this film, I think, were even, I don't know, directed by him, but inspired the concept of where they should be going. I think the entire third act has been said be attributed to him. That's what I mean. Seems like there's a lot more playful, sort of nature with it. But you're right. Does it excuse it from being a great film? I think that, bro, it definitely does. If even just looking at the reviews from it online, nowadays it's not considered as good because of its patchy nature, and I think because it didn't take an opportunity to say something a bit more.
And let's face it, the effects are incredibly dated in this too, so that kind of was really jarring.
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah,
shame.
which we'll get to as we break down
Yeah.
the scenes, I'm sure, especially towards the end.
Yes.
I found it quite interesting because there's quite a few locations in LA that are it's shot near and stuff like that. And one of the landmarks, which is the Queen Mary, which they actually shot a scene on.
Yeah.
Not the scene you might think, but the scene leading up to it.
Yes. All right.
Which is very cool because we're both interested in the sort of paranormal aspects of things, and for those of you who don't know, the Queen Mary has a swimming pool area which is reported to have had sightings or sounds within it. So if you're intrigued in that, give that a gander.
I've been on the Queen Mary, and I've also been on the ship too. Hey. I have been in the said pool as well. Right. So very interesting ship. Cool. It's got a lot of history to it too. So if you are interested in that sort of thing, look it up for sure. Yeah. So look, let's dissect this thing and start going through the plot narrative and talking it through. So we are greeted very similar to the beginning of Escape from New York, where we have a bit of a backstory going on. We're told that it's in August 2000, there was an earthquake that reached a magnitude of 9.6, which hit the city of Los Angeles, basically, and causing it to separate from the mainland and flooding the San Fernando Valley, which is now called the San Fernando Sea, and turning it into an island from Malibu to Anaheim.
Interestingly enough about that, at one point, maps dating, I think, back to the 1500s or sometime around that, I'm not too exactly sure, has a lake, a separation of, actually, I think entire California might have been underwater. I'm not too sure, but there was definitely a lake area there. So it is possible. Having said that, if it was to be a permanent water mass, then the sea level would have had to have risen, and therefore there would be a lot more coastline underwater. But it's an interesting take because the original of Escape from New York was the concept originally arose, I think, from just the hypothesis of going how good a location it would be to make New York an island of misfits, like an Alcatraz.
That's right.
Larger, because if it ever got to that sort of case. Which is interesting too, because it's foreshadowing 2000, which I guess 2016 probably would have been a bit more apt.
Exactly. So I was also struck with that with the telling of this. My head went straight into Superman and Gene Hackman's plan as Lex Luthor to create a seismic shift and change the shape of the states of America so that he could have land rights, because he probably
I loved it how he was going, people are going to pay me for that land.
Yes.
They're not going to bomb you, they're not going to nuke you. Or...
No, not at all.
It's cool because the idea of take it to the nth degree of real estate being the biggest capitalistic commodity. I mean, one of the reasons that Scientology is so prolific is because I think it owns 40% of Los Angeles,
right?
Real estate wise. So it's like they're taking to the nth degree and then throwing in a little bit of kryptonite just to make sure it's not being overtaken.
That's it. So look, but just before that happens as well, we are introduced to the American president candidate, who's this guy played by Cliff Robertson, who's this really kind of Christian, kind of theo-racist kind of character. With lots of
a big departure from the first.
Yes. I'm the president, number one.
Yes.
Donald Pleasant loved that role. He relished that. Like, you could tell he was really in the zone. But this president is played by Cliff Robertson, and he's a very kind of outspoken, kind of doomsday kind of prophet.
Repent.
Yes.
Repent. The kingdom of heaven is at hand.
And he predicts disasters impending, and often saying that LA is a city of sin. And there's a line.
So Westboro Baptist Church is now running the country.
Pretty much.
It's like, there is a worse candidate than Donald Trump, believe it or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, this foreshadowing. So therefore, like, you get the rules for what gets you into the island or into, LA.
Yeah.
And being an atheist is one of them.
Yes.
Which is great. So just like not having any religion, which I'm assuming because he's a Christian or a Catholic, it would be Hindus. I think they say Islam is in there if you're a Muslim, and all this. You'd have all these faiths in there too.
Yeah.
Like the majority of the country.
Pretty much. It won't leave a lot left over, really. Huh.
Yeah.
Let's build a wall.
You could do an interesting one where you did like a third one where it was like Escape from Canada, or something like that, or Alaska. I don't know, which is Newfoundland.
I'd like to go bigger. I like the idea of a third one. I'd actually say Escape from Gaia or Escape from Earth. And
I was going to escape from the moon or something, but Escape from Earth sounds better.
And then because Earth's fucked, so let's get...
That's cool.
Yeah,
and it's getting to like Lord of the Flies times where everything's getting into chaos.
Exactly.
That's a cool film.
Yeah. You hear me, Carpenter? Come out of retirement. Come out of retirement.
No. Here's Kurt Russell. We'll get Steve Buscemi back. Get Ernest Borgnine. Oh damn.
Foley.
But speaking of the cast, like a fantastic cast. I mean, even Kurt Russell alone. Yeah, exactly. Being a big action star and smooth as.
We'll rattle through them really quickly, actually, because we've got obviously got Kurt Russell with Snake Plissken. We've mentioned Steve Buscemi. He plays this guy called Map to the Stars, Eddie. We have a surfer in the guise of Peter Fonda who plays a character called Pipeline.
Surprising to see, but awesome. I kind of liked how funky he was in the role, especially knowing Peter Fonda being like the old school golden years of Hollywood sort of star. Yeah,
that's it. We also had and we'll talk a bit more about his role as well as we get to the moments in the film. But we also have Valerina Golino, who plays Taslima, and to me she's hot shots.
Exactly. Yes. I couldn't think of anything else but Chopper and that scene with the taking the food out of the fridge and stuff like that. Yes. A beautiful woman, but also too I haven't seen her in enough things. She reminds me of Rachel Weisz. So it seems like she would have a field day with even like classical sort of Jane Austen type, Sense and Sensibilities and stuff like that. It would be great to see her like beating her chops out with that sort of stuff. So surprising to see that she hasn't had sort of more work, whether it was not because she had an accent. But yes, no, Hot Shots, fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And she, I don't know, she had a moment during like the 90s, essentially, wasn't it? And then kind of faded away a little bit, but possibly, I don't know. So then we get we have Stacey Keach, who plays Commander Malloy in the film. He's basically the Lee Van Cleef character from Escape from New York, and he probably most people would know him as playing Mike Hammer from the Mickey Spillane kind of series.
Yeah,
he's done loads of other things too.
I knew him from Prison Break. I think he was the warden in Prison Break.
Yeah. And we get Pam Grier, who comes up. She doesn't crop up until like the last half an hour of this film.
Yeah,
which was a bit surprising because her name comes up and you go, "Oh God, Pam Grier, isn't it?" And I completely forgot she was in it too. And she, go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, surprisingly courageous role as well for her to take it at the time. Obviously, it was played a little bit more campy than what we would now like to see. But also awesome to see roles being played like that in big budget films, and not in a way really that's, Snake doesn't really care. He's just going to use any situation to his advantage. But her also too for her image as well, and another big star like the Peter Fonda. But that's what this film brought together a lot more because I think that they could see the instant success of Escape from New York.
Yes, agreed. And just to put a bit of context in there too, because she plays a character called Hirsch La Palmas, formerly known as Carjack Malone, and she's a transgender woman. And she has a criminal association with Snake Plissken, which we'll talk about when we get to the narrative. But yeah, very kind of a strong character to play, particularly in the time, as you said. It's that was a very kind of bold thing to do. As I said, more so to do with the time. You kind of could see it quite easily playing today, but the fact that even in the 90s is
No, exactly. And even just on that, because I know that just by putting a character in there, a lot of creators or characters that might be, I don't know, cause offense to anyone or just this sort of discussion, they would avoid putting these characters into it. Shouldn't have to worry about that because I think most people are sensible enough to know the perspective of what the film's trying to communicate, such as Enola Holmes I recently saw on Netflix. Now that has Millie Bobby Brown and Henry Cavill, and it's quite good. I quite enjoyed it. It was what I didn't like about it was you have a shotgun and they're firing it within 10 feet and they're missing every shot, or they can stop it with thin, like the plate armor was stopped when guns came out because guns go through plate armor. Plate armor is to stop arrows and swords. Anyway, that film was knocked recently just because being very anti-man. And it's because it's from the point of view of this young girl who has been oppressed. And it's at the time just before the suffragette movement happens and there's a lot of involvement with that. And so the point of view is directly saying where her point of view is. So anytime she says, oh, men are getting it too easy. Yeah, because that's what she believes. We can completely get that. And when it comes down to it, the storyline doesn't turn around and say, oh, she ends up being too powerful because she's a woman or anything like that, or every man is stupid, like some other films don't. They do it really honestly, and I felt quite good. So I think if it's getting bashed for anything like that, you need to understand where the perspective of the film is coming from. Can see where, like in this film, they still honor the character. I feel like, it's not for the campiness that is there, mainly an audio effect. It's still, I think, respected, especially even for the time, because I know a lot of people will say, oh, but for the time. Even for the time, I still think that they're treating people as people.
Yes, I agree. I think that's a very important point to make, especially as you said with Snake's reaction as well. It's just very much, well, okay, how do I now play this to my advantage?
It's still Carjack Malone.
Yeah. All right. So, and just kind of rounding out a couple of the other actors in it too, we have Bruce Campbell as Surgeon General of Beverly Hills. And I'm going to leave that there because I really want to talk about his scene in a bit more detail when we get to it. And we have Michelle Forbes, who is playing Brazen. So she's one of the guards, essentially. And she had a pretty big career as well, in more so in the 90s. I always remember her more so as California with Brad Pitt and Juliette Lewis. But she was in a bunch of other stuff as well, which I'm probably forgetting. And the last person I'll probably mention will be AJ Langer, who plays the president's daughter. For me, she's always Rayanne from My So-Called Life.
She's got one of those faces where it's just like, I've seen her in something, I don't know what it is. Something.
Yeah, it's been a lot of things. So that's
the people under the stairs.
The people under
the stairs. And the Drew Carey show.
No.
Nostalgia.
Sorry, we're back.
But star-studded cast.
Yeah, very, very cool. Very cool cast. So, so back to the president. President Dickhead, and he so he's this very kind of evangelical kind of character. One of the quotes he says is, like the mighty hand of God, waters will rise up and separate this sinful city from our country. And then so obviously everything happens with the earthquake, and his prophet kind of comes true, and he becomes the new president, and he declares that all people not conforming to the new moral America basically will be banned from. And what he means by that is like, things like smoking, drinking alcohol, eating red meat, owning a firearm, swearing, any non-Christian religious beliefs, like you had mentioned.
Yeah, and the hardcore ones too. Like, it doesn't mention about the wearing the two different types of cloth together. Like, if you wear the two different types, because that would probably be one of them as well. Eating shellfish, but he would also condone slavery if he's one of those hardcore Bible bashers. I mean, he's not the kind of guy that you want to have on your side. So that when you see the situation then with his daughter, but she's actively against him. You're interested because of the president in the first film. It's an interesting contrast, because I was instantly going, am I supposed to feel for this? Is it the same president? What's the dynamic here? But it sets it up pretty quickly that you're against this president, almost in a, I want to say, what is it? Not Cabin in the Woods. It's The Mist. The woman in The Mist. That sort of way. She's just fear mongering and in the worst way, which is scary. Yeah,
definitely.
So obviously they're going to make this the city of sin, the city of angels, the city of shame. Area that is, gonna be it.
That's it. And basically, so if you fall under any of these kind of no-nos, according to the president, then you will lose your citizenship and be deported to the now Los Angeles island, a bit like in New York City, in Escape from New York. So it's kind of almost like a containment facility. And there's a big wall that's been built around the entire island.
Paid for by Mexico?
Yeah, build a wall. And and again, very similar to New York, where there's watchtowers around all the exterior.
It's just a whole row of religious people holding hands.
Build a wall.
Build a wall.
Build a wall. Okay, it's a new charity, Build a Wall.
Around your heart.
And your soul.
And your friends.
Fuck your friends.
Cough on them. No.
All right.
So crazy times and an awful sitch.
So here's the thing, right? So in the island, it's a very, again, like, in New York, it was run by, there's always like a leader. In this case, we have, this is now the year 2013, and we meet a guy called Cuervo Jones, who is this Che Guevara-looking kind of guy who is about revolution and very against the president. So obviously, this is lifting very, like, by having somebody that has the physical resemblance of Che is a big statement in and of itself. Like the whole kind of communism against capitalism.
Oh yeah.
So what? I guess I'm going to throw you under the bus here by asking you what do you think of that as a directorial or a narrative choice? What do you think Carpenter and Russell are saying by doing that?
I think you're just taking the two extremes at the time. Those were the biggest sort of connectors. I mean, even nowadays, you have a lot of people wearing the Che Guevara outfits, walking around promoting socialists and things like this. And there's a lot of things that Che Guevara did that are not something that most people condone. I mean, his occupation of Congo and what he did to the people over there. Congo has had awful things happen to them, mainly by the Belgians. But what he did was no better. Basically doing a very similar sort of thing, being you're in our class and group, if not, you're killed. So it was a slavery, essentially. But that's where also I think that there's the contrast where you've got a society of evil. In this film, more so. In the first film, you had, I liked, what was it, Ernst Borgnine. He ran away. Sold out. He's always just like, hey, if you can spare this. I loved his character because he was so honest. And he was just a criminal. He was just like, but this is what we do. That seemed a lot more honest. Whereas this is like, everyone's got an agenda, I felt, is a bit more where it was saying it, because she is completely, we'll get into that later, but because of the main character, Aurora, Utopia, not Aurora.
Yeah.
Utopia. She, which it's not Euphoria, because that's what I'm thinking. I was waiting for her to have that moment. Where she would see what's happening in front of her eyes, where again it's the stories told and it's the promise of revolution. It's not this society. It's a lot of the times where people will even say anti-capitalist, but it's like, if we get rid of the almighty dollar, what do we replace it with? We have to replace it with something, because otherwise it'll be chaos. We need to have some system in place, and usually that'll end up being a very similar system than what we have now, which is how governments and referendums and amendments get made in constitutions and things like that. And then they should, because we will benefit from society and learn from both what we do as a people and what other people do. So I think it's mainly a selling idea. Everyone can identify with that. They see the beret, they see the beard and the hair out and stuff like that, and the military garb, and instantly it's adopted to it. But also too, they play this guy as a man of action, whereas the other guy is a man of action, but he's definitely behind a desk. And you will usually get this sort of, in most films, Plinkett from Red Letter Media breaks these characters down fantastically, but usually there is a main bad guy, which is the one funding the expedition, or the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the one who gets the idol in the beginning, and then you've got a muscle later on who is the one who gets killed by the blades and stuff. But this sort of dynamic, I think, is played with well here, because you get a situation later on where Che Guevara literally jumps from his car. So you can see where the appeal is from both of this, but at the end of the game, where you're confronted with the kind of man he is and the morals that he has, you go, oh, I was just literally projecting what I feel onto what they are. So I think that's end game, what he's probably saying, and probably saying that earlier after not breaking down the rest of the plot. If you've seen the film, you might understand that a bit more, but also too, I might be completely wrong and talking out of my ass, but
I was just curious, because like for me it's a very maybe more so now, but his image is iconic and definitely represents communism to in a particular stance, and the whole relationship with Cuba and all that stuff as well. So I just found that an interesting choice to make.
Yeah, but this was also at a time where, what year was the Vietnam War and the protests they had around that? Because I know my grandfather was in the Korean War, and when I think he had something to do with, he was doing something with the military around that. Yeah, he was like spat on and stuff like this when he was coming back and things, because university students apparently around the time, I wasn't alive at this time, but there was a lot of education about injustices, which also happens now. But we need to encourage anyone who's learning to ask more questions and to do their own research. That doesn't mean only do your own research. Listen to everybody. Even if you don't agree with them, you'll find little things that'll take you off a little trail and stuff like that, and you'll form your own opinion. But that's where I think this is probably saying a bit more. Snake knows exactly what his morals are. Yeah. And even from the beginning of this film, like, when he gets onto the island, he's sort of resolute.
Yes.
That makes any sense. So I think that there's that compared to the main female, the daughter of the president.
Yes.
Who is in crisis, trying to find herself, trying to find do the best.
Very lost, incredibly lost.
Really lost. Like that first scene, what she's doing on the plane with the bomb and stuff like that is
Yeah, that's right. So basically, like the way it's played out is she's apparently been brainwashed by Cuervo into stealing her father's remote control to the Swords of Damocles, which is this
Swords of Damocles,
a super weapon, series of high tech, basically satellites that are capable of destroying electronics anywhere on the planet. Using a pulse, electromagnetic pulse. The president has threatened to use this system before to render enemies of America unable to function and eventually dominate the world. And Utopia basically gets this thing, and she's on Air Force 3 at the time, and escapes in a pod, and happens to land in LA to be with Cuervo. So with the satellites are basically all under the control of Cuervo, and he's promising to take back America with the assistance of a host of Latin American nations and who are standing by for his signal to attack. And Cuervo threatens that if the president tries to stop him, he'll pull the plug on the country, and just demonstrates his power by blacking out the capital, which has been moved to the president's hometown of Lynchburg, Virginia.
That's great.
It's also the real life of hometown of Jerry Falwell. Yeah.
Oh, really? I was going to say, I would have thought it would have been, was it Pennsylvania? Because I think that was the first, Philadelphia, I think, was the first capital. But Pennsylvania was called that because they had graphite mines, and that was where they made most of their money. But I was going to say as well, Damocles, if you don't know the sort of Damocles, that story, it's very, very old story about... was it Damocles and Dionysus and everything like that. Yeah. Basically, Damocles was a servant and pandering to his king Dionysus and exclaiming that how truly fortunate he was to have so much power and authority, and he didn't have to worry about anything. So Dionysus offered to switch places with him. And he says, do that for a day and you could taste, every fortunate firsthand. And so he does so. And he sat on the throne and surrounded by every luxury and had all his enemies and reigns and stuff like that. And the arranged sword that should hang above the throne and held at the pommel only by the single hair of a horse's tail to evoke the sense of what a true king was like. So to put that idea of fear, you've got everything. You've got food, wenches, but the whole time you've got something hovering over your head like you're going to get stabbed. Yeah. So, faced with that, confrontation, Damocles, begged the king to turn around and go, no, let's switch back. I don't want to have to sit here with that. It was something I've always wanted. When I went to San Simeon, which is Hearst Castle in America, and the Francisco area, he has massive ballrooms and massive banquet halls and stuff like that. And at that point, I fell in love with tapestries. I was just like, I want to have things hanging up. But he had a whole bunch of things, and I always thought I was surprised that he didn't have at the end of one of these tables a sword hanging above one of the ends of the table, because I thought that's, even if it was by chains or something like that, it felt like with all this opulence around you, that would be sending home just that little message to yourself of humility. I don't know. I didn't see it. There wasn't anything. There was things hanging from the ceiling, but no swords. He did have wooden panels, so they could have been above that. But but that's what the sort of Damocles is. So it's supposed to be. It's this idea of him saying that he's always with great power comes great responsibility of being a president. But this president being the president we know how little that means. As you say, he demonstrates his power by blacking out of capital. So anyone who had to use that electricity, all those hospitals, all those people in elevators, fuck that guy.
That guy, that's the guy that's doing it all. God damn him. So the other thing we should probably mention to do with that, with the power that is now in the hands of Cuervo, is that he is also in possession of the actual code, which is called the Secret World Code, which happens to be 666. And this can activate all the satellites at the same time and knock out the entire planet.
Yeah. And just for those of you playing at home as well, for those of you who think that 666 is the number for the acolyte of the beast, according to the biblical texts, according to the original scrolls from Egypt, it's 616.
Yeah.
And it's the number on a cave for the acolyte of the beast referring to the adversary, usually referred to as Satan or devil. Satan literally means the adversary. But the acolyte of the beast was those followers of the beast, those who had sin. So 616 is the number of humans.
Ah, there you go.
Isn't that interesting?
I didn't know the. I knew it was 616, but I didn't know the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, obviously a lot of interpretation goes into it, but when you read it as the number that's on the cave for the acolyte of the beast, and those ones in the story that they're pursuing are people who are sinners, or I think they stole something, or they're murderers, something. They chased them to a cave, so it's those have been possessed by Liliths or demons.
Yes,
stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah. So this is where we actually meet Plissken for the first time. So all this is kind of a heck of a lot of backstory, essentially, kind of building up where we are, the place itself, and the the foundations of what we're about to see kind of be torn apart, essentially, in the throes by with the help of Snake Plissken as he comes into the fold. We're played once again by Kurt Russell, as we said.
The exact same outfit, still fits.
He's still, and I love the way the leather coat is framed. That little bit more, looking a little bit more lived in. He's been caught again for a series of crimes, and he's basically welcomed to the deportation area by duty sergeant, who is played by Peter Jason, who we have seen in the lights of Prince of Darkness fairly recently, and a bunch of other kind of Carpenter films. He's become something of a bit of a regular in the films. As he's being led through, though, he kind of feels this woman approaches him on the other side, and she kind of takes a swipe at him and cuts his hand. And then eventually, scratch. Meow. And then he gets led into this room on his own. And in the room is like a monitor and a big red button. Yes.
Yeah. That reminded me, the scratch moment just reminded me a lot of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. When they, I think Dorian Gray helps someone up and he goes, oh, that's right, Skinner, the Invisible Man, you scratched me. He goes, better me than him. But yeah, that's a fun film. They need to make another one of those films. Apparently Sean Connery hated it.
Yeah, I heard. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, a deep sort of scratch. And I'm surprised, like, in the first film, it's weird because they inject him and they say, like, tell him. And like, in the last podcast you did, you remarked how, like, he just let that slide, someone, just inject me and then tell me what it is. I was surprised he let that slide, the scratch. Yeah. Because it was just like, he just literally looks down as if like, oh, okay. But what we see seems pretty, like, you'd notice it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he does. He's pretty dismissive of it. But I think this is all lays into this kind of notion that people think he's dumb, when he's not. There's a bit more going on there. So
I think he's more thoughtful because, like, rather than that reacting straight away, he seems like the sort of person who's going to, he thinks, there's a whole bunch of armed people around him. If he's going to start wailing on this nurse, it's not going to, this female nurse, it's not going to help his situation of getting out of there. I think he's a little bit more long-term.
Yeah,
sort of
I agree, 100%. So basically, he's in this room, and this is where he's then greeted by the president and the police base camp commander Malloy, which is Stacey Keach's character, and his aide Brazen, Michelle Forbes. And they basically offer him a deal, and they want Snake to go to the island as an exile to retrieve the remote device and bring it back. And the president says he will give Snake a full pardon for all his crimes he's ever committed if he is successful. Bullshit! I call bullshit! Bullshit! And the president basically indicates he doesn't care if Utopia, his daughter, is returned or not, saying she's a traitor and dead to me. And initially, Snake refuses to get involved with it. I don't know if that's my bag. But basically, Malloy tells him that Snake was secretly infected minutes earlier with the man-made Hutoxin 7 virus, which will kill him in 10 hours. If he completes the mission, Snake will be given the antidote. And this, again, sets up like the predecessor with their time. There's a time limit. It's like the key.
Yeah, but like half the time.
Where, we're counting down the clock.
But it was like 24 hours in the first one, and this one's 7?
Is it? 10 hours he's got.
Oh, 10. Sorry. But yeah, like half of it. So I like that. I like that aspect. Like, and they change his costume in a second too. Like, so it's they're definitely trying to update things. I was kind of hoping it was going to keep the jacket though.
Yeah, I like the jacket.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. It's a shame. But he's given a submachine gun though. Backtracking a second. So while they're all telling the back history of what's happening, we get the flashback of the recorded images of Utopia stealing basically the machine and then hijacking out of Air Force 3. It's a bit of a picture-in-picture moment with the special effects.
Yeah,
where it comes up.
It was what we'd probably call a augmented reality holographic technique or something.
Yeah.
Having said that, the only way that would be achievable in the way that they're doing it, we would have to be having some sort of lens. We'd have to be seeing through something. So you could have contact lenses that maybe have a very small or very limited LED comparative thing in there, or maybe just a shifting membrane. Would sort of work like 3D, but an awesome idea because it even shows up the cameras of where they're doing it, the projections of where they're coming from. So like most Carpenters, there's this thought gone into small aspects like this, which for me, I really dig that. Even when he looks behind him and he sees all of the people filming her standing around, and I was like, that's awesome. It's like, it's you've obviously got the plot, but then he's also expanding it by going, look at the technology that's available now. So therefore, if they go into this world and they, have a flubber type thing that can do anything, it works because you've shown us what the technology can do, and it's without, we can't do it now, where we're only starting to entertain those parts of those limits now.
Yeah, that's one area where Carpenter got it wrong, really, because we're in 2020 and this was 2013, and these things
haven't got flying cars.
Yeah. God damn
it. Well,
you.
Technically, we've got gyrocopters, and I think gyrocopters are pretty much the same thing.
Flying car, yeah.
We're going to have a comeback of the dirigible. What happened?
Yeah, you're putting it down there now. You're prophesying.
Yeah, the dirigible's coming back.
I tell you.
A big meat blimp or something.
So but Snake is given a submachine gun. This is a bit of a Bond moment. So he's basically given a whole load of gadgets. There's a holographic projector, a thermal camouflage overcoat, a countdown clock for how long he's got to live. God damn it! And he's given a what's that?
Get a GPS
as well. Did
he get a GPS? He gets one in the first one.
GPS.
Or that's what the time clock is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And he's got a bunch of other things as well. And he's told the device works quickly, so he's got to get his tails on. So Snake is given a device to record the minutes count down from 10 hours to find the device and get out before he dies.
I was just going to say as well, the outfit that you said was a thermal resistance, so obviously it's insinuating that it's going to be better for fire, it's fire resistant or thermal resistant. The material they used, apparently, it appears to me, just from looking at it, like a ripstop nylon, but I saw a making of documentary about it, and the guy said that they actually had to, they created a new fabric really? I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was this outfit, because I remember looking at it and going, oh, well, what does that look like? And it has this slight grid pattern, and that's from a material that if you buy very cheap umbrellas, you'll get that sort of ripstop nylon. But it's used in a lot of inflatables and things like that too, but also dance pants. It's a very breathable, airy sort of light material. Sorry, I found that out and I was just like, oh, that's cool. So I don't know if it's ripstop nylon, but apparently the material that's his outfit, was created for the film.
So you're basically saying that Snake Plissken is wearing dance pants, yeah?
Yeah, or umbrellas.
Umbrellas.
Sweater.
Okay, so no, that's cool. But it's interesting because the coat really doesn't have much impact in this as far as story is concerned.
When he says no, I'll take the jacket, and they say no, take it all, I was thinking he's going to have a moment where he's going to save someone with the jacket, or there's going to be he's going to get burnt and he Batman's it. But no,
it doesn't happen. He just likes the jacket. So then he's also they're basically the way they're going to get him in there is that he's going to be in this kind of nuclear powered mini submarine to kind of get him across the ocean. Sorry, hiccups.
Yeah, from land through water under the ocean and then out through the
other side.
Not ocean. It's like a.
There's this great moment where he, when he's all armed up, he turns and shoots at the two guards there, Malloy and Brazen, and Malloy just goes, "Yeah, I thought you might do that. That's why your first clip is blanks."
Because they did that first with a hologram, then the second time with a blank.
Yeah.
So I was like, why aren't you just still the hologram? Why, if you use a hologram once, why go into a room with this guy at all?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking that as well. It was like, yeah.
But I like it. Cool, they're setting it up. So like his first clip is blanks, but I don't think that comes back. Like he doesn't get in there and is like his first problem is that he's firing blanks.
No, because he does change the clip just as like literally after he says that he changes down the clip, but then he goes straight into this submarine thing, which he has to kind of lie down on in order to get into it. Kind of lying forwards. Yes. Yeah. And,
like one of those big slippery dips.
Yeah. And he pilots badly the submarine because he's going at full pelt across. And this is a dodgy effects moment as he's going through. A
lot of halo lines from the maps.
Yeah. But he eventually comes out the other side and launches himself onto this kind of very rickety platform, and the whole thing kind of collapses. And he loses his submarine. So this again is a bit like, again, if you're looking at references to the first one, this is the glider moment where the glider lands on the roof and he loses the glider. So the submarine...
He loses the submarine, which is the contrast, because it's the sort of thing of going, in the first one, it was so precarious of how he was going to land on a rooftop with a glider. When he started getting into that, and I was like, no, this isn't going to happen with the glider. He's going to go in there in a helicopter, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's, bit far-fetched from that. But also, too, then, right then he loses the submarine. So that's what, right at this second, you can see Kurt Russell's reaction where he's going, now I'm not going back. But he's partially resolved with that comfort of going, well, okay.
Yeah.
He doesn't let it get him down.
No, that's it. He just keeps on trucking. So then he there's those this is where we first meet mind blank, Peter Fonda's character with the surfers.
Pipeline,
that's it, thank you.
He's cool. He's just standing out there with, I think he's armed or something like that, and he's a guard or something like that. He's just like, wait a minute, are you Snake Plissken?
Yeah, he's got one of those like security kind of things. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Unbreakable with Bruce Willis's character with the big poncho kind of thing he's got on. So we kind of meet him, and he kind of follows him a little bit, and I forget how he
just lets him go, I think.
Yeah, I think he lets him go.
He's just like, I won't tell anyone you're here.
He also meets, this is where he first meets Steve Buscemi's character as well, the Map to the Stars Eddie character, who's this wheeler dealer kind of swindler character, basically selling interactive tours of LA.
Which is great. They're all like little MP3 players, and they got little CDs.
That's
like mini disc players.
That's right.
Remember those kids?
I remember those very well.
I was about to say, remember those mums and dads?
So then he bumps into knife-wielding skinhead Robert Carradine's character.
Because he says you're going to want to have these things because they'll tell you where to go, and he ends up just going in by himself.
Yes.
Because he says it's like $50,000.
Oh, really?
He says like, I'll give you a discount. I think it's $50,000. But it's something ludicrous. And he says that's a really good deal. But I was like, so I felt though, because that character of Steve Buscemi was really trustworthy at that point, he gave him no reason, to doubt him. There must be something valuable on there. So it must be like, hey, welcome to the stars. You're going past here. This is where Elvis used to live. But now it's a gang of thieves. Make sure you wind up your windows and get armed and ready, I was expecting it was going to be something like that. And I would have loved to have. They should crowdfund that.
You're right. They should have like an audio podcast of Eddie's kind of commentary. That would be cool.
Steve Buscemi. That'd be awesome fun.
I reckon that'd be funny. So Robert Carradine's character, the kind of skinhead character, is the one that causes him a bit of mischief when he's in a bit this kind of downtown LA area. Who's causing him a bit of shit, and then Snake Plissken kind of ends up in an alleyway, and the guy's still being a bit of a dick, and he just basically shoots him and kills him, which is speaking of Harrison Ford, is a very Indiana Jones moment with the knife wielding dude, and he just basically pulls the gun and shoots him. Raiders. It is this kind of real kind of I don't have time for your bullshit. Right, I'm on a mission. I'm about to die if I don't kind of get this thing sorted. So fuck you.
And he's already starting to sort of feel the effects, or at least show the effects of it.
Yes, he is. Yes, he's coughing a lot, and he's looking a little bit pasty.
Even before he left, he was coughing.
yeah. He's like, oh my god, this thing's quick. So then Snake meets. This is where he meets Valeria's character. And she's basically she's watching the camp, the Cuervo's camp from outside, but they both end up getting captured as they're observing. So these people are all wearing hoods, like they look like monks essentially, and they basically get captured by them and then led into this. When they come to, they're kind of strapped to this
these gurney tables that are stretched upright.
Yeah, and there's all these women like nurses who have had a lot of facial reconstruction on them, and
a lot of like echoes of Brazil and Have you seen Repo, the generic opera?
Yes.
The Pavi character, but also to Doctor Who. I can't remember her name. But she's just Cassandra.
Yeah.
The stretch of skin.
Zoe, what's her name, plays her.
Because once they were here, I was kind of like, oh, this is like it. It sort of reminded me of a musical. I was waiting for, this is going to be a big scene. Because I was freaks running around, doing all this sort of stuff. Really got me sort of interested. And so they're both sort of strapped upright, and which got me thinking. I didn't know if they were wanting to look this way, or they used to look normal and then they were formed this way. So there was a lot of questions with what was happening there around it, which was really, really interesting, especially for that scene. Mainly because then we have the Doctor who comes in, and instantly when he comes in and I couldn't see who he was, I thought, wouldn't it be great if it was Bruce Campbell? And it's fucking great.
Behold.
Yeah. With his original chin and all.
I know, huh? Just kind of let's keep the chin. I know what you're saying. It goes against logic, but
make it even bigger.
We're going to form the face around the chin. So we are introduced to his character, the Surgeon General of Beverly Hills, who's this great. I love his performance in this. It's such a cool character. Who's kind of like as surgeons sometimes do, not us, of course, but have this godlike personality that have this and this self-belief that what they are doing is good for the common people.
And this holier than thou sort of aspect. Because I think that there's another character I can't remember what film, but it's about their hands. Not Doctor Strange. It's a plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
And I think a thread is made for their hands. If they destroy their hands, then really everything is taken away from their whole power, and that's the only time they crumble. That was their weakness. Because their ego is so massive. But it's surprising that you'll get someone who's massive ego when they look so strange like that.
Yeah.
When they've made themselves look that prominent. But there's people that exist out there.
There are. There's a lot of what's the word? Is it not dysmorphia? There's I've forgotten the name of it now. Where they push themselves to the nth degree to kind of to attain idolized beauty, but they push themselves beyond. That. So it moves into kind of really disturbing territory.
That's right.
Body dysmorphia or something like that. I want to say it's called.
Image dysmorphia or something.
Image dysmorphia, it could be that. Yeah.
But the lion lady, and there's another man, but it's the sort of thing of going. It's like do what you want, but just be safe. Like especially with some of the botched things that you could hear. That was the main thing that I was thinking about, the cleanliness in this place. It didn't look as clean as I would be thinking. If you're going to be doing plastic surgery and putting in implants and stuff like that, you don't want an infection happening, or something happening wrong there. So. No. Every time there was violence in this scene, I was wincing extra hard.
No, please. Yeah. So you can't. This is one of those situations where you're going, well, how is he going to get out of this? And of course, one of the weapons that Snake was provided with was a knockout dart, which is hidden in the lapel of his jacket. And he basically kind of takes a chomp, has it in there, and then as Mr. Campbell gets closer, he basically gives him a bit of a headbutt, and embeds the knockout dart into the surgeon's head.
Yeah.
And then they're able to kind of get out there, and he's
got a gun, so he takes that off him. Then,
that's right. And Valeria's I can't say her name. Valeria's character is pleads for Snake to take her with him because she knows the area, and he kind of reluctantly does so. And they basically kind of escape into a junkyard from memory. And this is where she kind of then turns on her charm. And it says, I have feelings for you, Snake.
This felt a bit like late on.
So this kind of moment happens, and then so he goes off, leaves her, but then she catches up with him, and and is basically going to be tagging along with him, and then she gets caught in a crossfire and killed. To which point, and this is one of the moments, going back to what I was saying at the beginning about how there's these patchy kind of moments, and I know Escape from New York had these character moments, but each character seemed to serve a purpose, and I felt like her character didn't. I kind of went, oh, all right.
Honestly, until now, I was still waiting for her to come back. As in, when her character died, I was like, oh, they'll bring her back. She'll, I don't know, somehow she'll be a bad guy and she faked a death or something. I don't know. It's only until when you mentioned that now, I thought that she was in the rest of the film. But I think I've built it over with Hot Shots 2, the ending of that. Yeah,
maybe.
Just also on a side note as well, the president's daughter is named Utopia, and that obviously means an imagined place or state of things where everything is perfect.
Yes.
So part of her extreme of trying to chase the ideal thing is that she is in the delusion that there is a perfect place. Yes. There is a perfect state of being for everyone.
Exactly.
Which is, her father's fault.
So she's killed. Not Utopia.
Valerie.
Valeria. And then Snake bumps into Eddie again, Steve Buscemi, who tries to lead him to Cuervo's camp, only to betray and get Snake captured again.
Oh, the name Valeria in Italian means to be strong.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Go Valeria. Snake is not so strong at this point, though, because he's starting to feel really sick. And he's brought to what is the old LA arena, and he's forced to play basketball.
This is really out of the blue.
It really is. It's like, what's LA famous for? Surfing? Yeah, we've done that. What else? Basketball. The LA Lakers. Yeah. How are we going to rope that in?
Do you reckon that was what it was? Or do you reckon it was Kurt Russell turning around and saying, look, I really want to do, I've been working out, I've been playing basketball and I want to do this?
No, I don't. I think it is literally what is LA famous for?
It's hilarious. It was a very Space Jam moment. Now that makes a lot more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But so essentially in this game, all he has to do, it's a bit like the beat test. But it's a beat test with on a basketball court, and he has 10 seconds to net the ball, and every time he does so, he gets a basket. He gets 2 points, and he
has to get 10 points, so doesn't he?
Yeah. If he doesn't, they'll kill him. And of course, he does it, doesn't he? Because he's Snake.
Well, he also says that no one's ever been able to do it.
Yeah.
And he runs back and forth and does it. But apparently, too, when they were filming that, and this, I don't know if it's just a boast or it's an actual trivia thing, but Kurt Russell supposedly landed all those shots, even the last long shot, which I find hard to believe. But also, too, because it slightly looks like a matte shot, but that could be because there's a stadium. It's like a stadium behind him.
True.
But having said that, it's not like it hasn't happened before or after. In Alien Resurrection, Sigourney Weaver made that shot. Yeah. And that's the final shot that they took on that day. And she did it thousands of times before that. But, yeah, she walks away from the camera, does that, and it goes through the hoop. So it is possible. And obviously there are skilled people. Like, I'm sure – like I've done juggling for a while. I know that there is an inherent skill that, you might not be able to necessarily communicate to people saying, this is what you do mathematically.
Yeah.
But apparently, he did that for realsies.
It's like it's the Harlem Globetrotters got their professional name for a reason. Like, there's a skill to the...
Exactly, when they weren't working out quantum physics for Futurama.
Yeah. Like, was it Futurama or was it... I thought it was The Simpsons, where there's a bit where he says he was betting against the Harlem Globetrotters from winning.
It might have been both.
Yeah,
who knows?
Anyway,
they're both Matt Groening and LA's a sellout.
Yeah, totally. And then so basically, Plissken kind of makes that, makes the last shot, and he starts to get the approval from the crowd. Goes Snake,
start chanting his name.
Snake.
Yeah.
And then somebody realizing there is a snake.
Snakes. No, shit. Oh, shit. Great.
Great. Yeah, sorry. Digression. And so, again, this is very similar to the boxing scene in Escape from New York. Escape. And so, speaking of escape, Snake escapes over the wire and does a runner. And the worst shooting again in film history, where they're trying to shoot him as he's escaping. Like, surely somebody would have pegged his ass.
Yeah. Someone's got a rifle. I mean, surely they're going to protect Jay Rivera.
Exactly.
But also too, like, he scales that. Was it the wire fence, and it's going up with him. And I was thinking, he's going to get to it, and there's going to be barbed wire or razor wire. Nothing there. Just goes up and over.
Yeah.
So what's the point of the gate then?
Yeah.
No, let's make it 6 feet high without anything on top.
Yeah.
Not 8. Let's just.
I see what I should have done there.
Yeah. More wire.
What
was it when I went to Zimbabwe? There was the cheapest way of making barbed wire type things was at the top of your brick wall around your property. You would cement broken bottles all over the top. Right. So that but it was usually at a point where you would start and scale the wall and realize only when you were up and going over it. So it was very nifty and devious, but terribly scary.
Yeah, that would be pretty.
But yeah, that's all I needed to do. But at this point, that's when the Che Guevara character is standing up and preparing his rifle. Strangely enough, he hasn't got people to do this for him. But Utopia is realizing that no, he won fair and square. Whereas maybe she's seen other tournaments where they haven't won. And he's rightful to kill them because that's what his rules were or whatever. This is one of the first times where she's sort of like going, well, hold on, he's a bit of a douche.
Yeah. What are you doing, man? Fucking won.
Yeah.
But thankfully an earthquake hits or an aftershock. And so
it being LA.
So Snake gets away. And this is where he also gets a little bit of help from Pipeline, who shows him how to surf the tsunami waves that wash in the area down the Thunder Valley.
He gets punched out right at the opportune moment to meet up with Pipeline. And what I love there too is that he hasn't moved his dune bike buggy car thing out of the way. Like, they're not behind that and they're going to go before it. Like, that's going to run into you, surely. But another out of place,
Very
strange thing to have in this. Yeah, and then with the effects with it too, it was, surprisingly poor.
Yeah, it's so bad, this surf scene.
Yeah.
And then the comedy element slightly takes it into a bit more kind of a comfortable place, where you give it a bit where Buscemi's driving along in his, Chev, and he sees he sees Snake, who he thinks he's I missed the bit where he said he shot him, haven't I?
Has he been? Yes, no, he has. He gets shot before he reaches Pipeline, doesn't he?
I thought so.
Yes. That's what happens. So they get out of the auditorium or something like that, because I remember there's a moment when I was worried about how much Utopia's arm was going to dislocate, because Shea Rivera was running along with her, and that's when they meet up outside, and I think Steve Buscemi meets him, but somehow Snake gets the box and goes down through Pipeline, and that's where he gets shot.
Yeah.
Or can't remember. So strike that, reverse it. But also on that moment, just where we're talking about Pipeline and those canally sort of moments, that also reminded me a lot of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And that whole sequence, which was, also poor CGI.
Yes. Which is what League was actually unfortunately known for as well.
Yeah. And just chaotic production schedule.
Yes.
Which is a shame, because a lot of great concepts. I mean, just seeing Dorian Gray on the screen again, and obviously he's had a remake, I think, in 2011. But just to see that reimagining.
I forgot his name now. I can see his face. Yeah. Long brown hair, dude.
Yeah. And obviously a very great departure from the classic story of Dorian Gray, where in the Extraordinary Gentleman, it's if he sees the painting, he reverts back to the age, which is not how it works. It's a torment. It's sort of like seeing in a mirror. That is the disdain that he has for that painting that looks how he has been to other people. It's great story. If you haven't read it, read it. If you haven't seen it, see the Herd Hatfield version with.
Yes, I agree with that too.
What's her name? It's Murder, She Wrote.
Oh yeah, Angela Lansbury. Yeah,
Angela Lansbury, of course. Yes, she plays the love interest in it, and tragic story.
She has had I know we're going on.
Sorry.
Digression, but she has had such an amazing career, Angela Lansbury. Definitely, people that probably like I did growing up just knew her from either Bedknobs and Broomsticks or Murder, She Wrote, right? But if you look back at her early career, she was in some amazing movies. So give that lady some cred, because she's a stellar actress.
Absolutely stunning as well. It was in some of her early things. She looks so different. Still the same person, but she has a beautiful singing voice, and so different in a soprano sort of aspect in those early days, where it was obviously a more vaudeville tradition, but it's carried over onto the film so beautifully, and still working today, which is such a huge kudos. And so,
totally. Yeah, absolutely cool. Where were we? So somehow we got a little bit of the plot mixed up, but if for the sake of picking up from where my notes are, Snake ends up kind of boarding the former Queen Mary cruise ship, which is located in what was Long Beach, and he meets up with local gang leader Hershey Las Palmas, which is the Pangria character that we mentioned earlier. Formerly known as Bill Carjack Malone, a transsexual and former accomplice of Snake from Cleveland, Ohio, who, after hearing about his mission to find the black box and remote control device, tells him that Plutoctin virus is a it's a lie. I can't say the word. Is a propaganda. I can't say it. It's a lie, basically. And it won't kill him. It's bullshit. And she agrees to help Snake. There is a nice little moment just in that exchange too, where the Cleveland thing, and there's a nod to or reference to a potential other escape where he escaped from Cleveland.
Yes.
In that too, which was one of the comic books that was released by Marvel, which was like one of these one-shot kind of deals, which was called The Adventures of Snake Plissken. It was released in early January '97, and it takes place between the escape from New York and his famous Cleveland escape, which was mentioned in Escape from LA as well. So yeah, there's lots of like little kind of links and stuff, and there's a lot of
cool
Snake Plissken adventures that aren't told, which probably could be told.
Yeah, you could even do a whole, like, you know, one season alone of Cleveland and then do another season of Earth.
Yes, let's keep them around.
Yeah, enough platforms out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying just that as well, on the Queen Mary, a couple of things. If the sea levels had risen or whatever had created that lake or that water around California, you'd think too, because that's in a, I don't think it's in a dry dock. It's actually in the shoreline water, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That would have raised as well, you would have thought. So it's strange to see this now in a dry dock area. Having said that, there are earthquakes, so who knows what's happening with the under earth. I mean, like, you know, there could be aquifers that are directing crap elsewhere. But when they go into the Queen Mary too, the scene just before they get to the swimming pool is filmed inside the Queen Mary. So that's actually the disused boiler room. Which I don't know if it's accessible to the public, but that's one of the areas, because I had a fascination as a kid with the Titanic and the sister ships of
I did too.
Yeah. So the intricacies, because I used to look a lot more into the events of what happened in the up until the last moments, and my friend was more about the ship and their sisters and the mechanics of it.
Right.
And so we always wanted to go to somewhere like the Queen Mary and go down to the boiler rooms and just look at the shaft connecting from one room to the other, the watertight compartment ballroom heads and stuff like that. So that's where I found like most interesting. When I found out this was real, I was like, cool, that's a really interesting shot, because it looks both industrial and like a negative place, but it's where all of the boilers and the reciprocating engines, or I think it was a turbine, wasn't it, Queen Mary?
Yes,
so yeah, that's where the turbine engine would have been. Yeah.
Yes, it's a really cool. We're promoting the Queen Mary a fair bit but I actually, in all seriousness, would recommend you, if restrictions ever kind of get to the point where you can go to LA. I do highly recommend going and checking it out. It's an awesome ship.
Yeah,
a heck of a lot of history behind it.
And one of the old school, or the end of the old school sort of designs of the steamship.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But I was going to ask as well, was there any similarities with the set design of the swimming pool set in this film to the actual layout of the...
right. Well, you're testing me now, because I would...
I assume not, just because it seems like there's a lot of pillars, and from when I've looked into it, I think it was a bit more open than that.
Yeah, I seem to remember it was more open. I'm trying to remember now.
I saw a video about the footprints.
I'm trying to think. I was about 11, I think, when I went. So I was pretty young. But yeah, I think from memory it was quite open.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this series before as well. There's a series called Dead Famous, which looks at historical places, and I'm pretty sure that features, like Queen Mary features in that at some point. Yeah, where they go to the pool in particular, and I think there's the ballroom on the Queen Mary as well, which has a lot of spiritual activity. Actually, there's a lot of spirits. It's not just those two places. It's teeming with spirits, but they're the most known areas. On the ship. Anyway.
One of the main claims, I think, is that there's children laughing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know that there's been reports of wet footprints and stuff like that, so it'd be a very interesting thing to investigate.
Oh, it'd be great. It was so cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, Snake finds himself on board, as I said, and that's where he meets up with Pam Grier's character, and they form a pact to try and get into Cuervo Jones's main camp and get the remote control device back and escape from the island, all in the process. And they basically intend to do this by getting on hang gliders and flying to Cuervo's staging area, which to me, this whole next sequence so reminds me of Flash Gordon and Brian Blessed as they're defeating the attack too.
Yes.
And
I didn't even think of that. You're so right.
I just wanted Brian Blessed to come up and go,
yeah, and then punch a bear in the face. No, I completely agree, because I was going to say, were they hang gliders or were they actually articulated wings?
I think they were kind of hang gliders, I think.
Yeah, because I remember when I was a kid, I saw Condor Man with Michael Crawford.
Oh, yeah.
And that was where my head was going, because I loved that film. I thought it was great because it was all about a superhero who was adamant about building and being the superhero. So it was like a very quirky sort of film. That's where I was seeing it. Yeah, this slow articulation of.
Great. So that's their plan. So Snake and Hershey's men, they arrive at the amusement park, which is called Happy Kingdom by the Sea. And we have this moment where Steve Buscemi's character lands first, or crash lands first, and he has another bit of an exchange with Cuervo, saying, don't kill me, I'm here to tell you you're about to be attacked. He's like, oh, by who? By Plissken. Didn't you tell me he was dead? Yeah, I thought he was dead. Turns out he's not. Yeah, it's a good little moment.
Yeah, I think that's another thing John Carpenter does as well. He portrays these characters that are honest but deceptive at the same time. You feel for them because they're being honestly deceptive to your face.
Yes.
But a couple of things about that too. The Happy Go Funland, or whatever they ended up calling it, was supposed to be Disneyland, because obviously Anaheim.
Yes.
But then they didn't want to be portrayed in that. And the other thing was the set that they're using as the front of the place is the Back to the Future set for the clock tower.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I've been to that too as well. It's
same. Yeah,
that whole town square is used a lot in films, and they just obviously give it a different facade and dress it up according to whatever they're using.
It's been struck by lightning a couple of times and burnt down a couple of times, but luckily they keep rebuilding it.
Yes, that's right.
It's the same. It's the Universal Backlot Tour. If you're ever in Hollywood or in Anaheim, definitely check out Disneyland, because it's fucking great. It's also the original. But also too, Universal Studios has a fantastic backlot tour which lets you see visceral things like floods, earthquake effects, a lot of things like that. I hope they still do that tour, because I found that to be awesome. I was so disappointed when I heard they took away the backlot tour from Warner Brothers Studios in Queensland. Because they used to have you flying like Superman, and you would get a sound effects tutorial, and that stuff was great. They did it for a while at Fox Studios, but unfortunately that went into receivership too when they weren't making enough money. But that had a fantastic Titanic ride, and a lot of my friends ended up working on that. Cool, very cool. And that's now one of the main sound stages, which is down there at Moore Park.
It's this. I think we evidently went on the same tour because I remember that as well, and I distinctly remember the earthquake one was really, really good.
Yeah, that was really cool. The subway comes through,
and the truck thing. That was cool. Anyway,
that's also the same tour that you'll drive around and you'll see the Bates Motel. You'll see the a different set. Yeah, and that's a lot of fun. It's definitely worth the money.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so basically, so this is when then Snake and the crew kind of arrive, and there's a big kind of F-off fight that ensues. And this is where Eddie appears again. There's a big kind of gun battle first, and Cuervo's he basically gets gunned. Hold on, what? Eddie basically appears again, and he helps to get Snake out, despite being a double agent playing both sides. And at this point, Snake is able to commandeer a police helicopter, and he sees the guy who stole his jacket from before, nicks the jacket back, and gets into the helicopter along with Eddie, Hershey, and a few other dudes. And they basically get onto the helicopter. Oh, this is one of those effects as well, where the helicopter does the whole Transformers thing.
Yeah.
And they basically get in the helicopter and start to fly off. And this is where the the daughter gets on there too, Utopia.
Yeah.
And,
before they've got onto this though, a while ago I think Steve Buscemi has a moment where he looks at one of the discs and he puts a red dot on it with nail polish from Pam Greer's asked, "Do you have nail polish?" And she's just like, "Yes." She says it in a little bum bag. But yeah, and so you get this insinuation that they're going to do some switcheroo or something, rope-a-dope, sort of thing. So, because that's at this point, that was what I was thinking when they were in the helicopter. That's what I was going. Remember that?
Yeah, that's true. And I thought that too. I was like, oh, that's got to come into it at some point.
Yeah, and that's what I was waiting for, because in this confrontation where they're fighting back in the helicopter, Steve Buscemi's character falls out of it. So
yes, because he also thinks he's going to, because Cuervo has a bazooka and he's about to, or a rocket-propelled missile, and that's where Buscemi thinks they're going to get fucked. So he kind of semi-falls out, but semi-jumps out of the helicopter.
Yeah, that's it. He jumps out and then he's just like, "Why are you going without me, you bastards?" I love that.
I jumped. That's the point.
Yeah.
So the helicopter gets shot at and it's obviously on fire. And this is the point too where blatantly just kills off Pam Grier's character because she's in the back of the helicopter. Do you remember that?
Who does?
Pam Grier, because the back of the helicopter blows up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So basically, Pam Grier's killed. So again, a moment of okay, what purpose was she again?
Or maybe it was something where
there's lots of
it was
like
Pam
that.
Grier. Might have just been she's not supposed to be in the sequence, but we'll put her in there because she's on set on the day and it's Pam Grier. I don't know. More screen time.
So this is where basically the helicopter's about to crash land. It's just got Utopia and Snake in the front, and they call through to the president and the commander as well, and they said, "All right, we'll just land. We'll get you sorted out." And Snake deliberately overshoots, and he gets Utopia to jump out of the helicopter. And then he kind of jumps out himself, and the helicopter blows up. And everyone turns up. There's this big kind of field in the middle of nowhere. This is where basically Snake hands the Malloy character the wrong remote. But
no, there's this. He's going to give him the remote. And then there's a moment where he checks the girl. Yeah. And it's just like, wait a minute, because they never actually touch. No. But he wants him to take it. Kurt Russell wants him to take the one that he's got. And then they go over and they see it here. So at this point, you're thinking, oh damn, the rope-a-dope hasn't worked.
Yes.
It was obviously been switched there, and so Then they once they've gotten it, they're like, ha ha ha. Screw you, hippie. And then they set up a press conference, and the president's about to go on live talking to the people.
That's right.
Everywhere. And it starts up, and he starts to activate the is this the EMP to? No, it's not to take out the water. He's going to do something, but he plays it, and it starts the report of Steve Buscemi.
That's right.
Saying, "Welcome to the stars of yesterday."
Yeah. So there has been a switch. That's right.
Yeah, and that's great too, because I was like, this is when the president is going to be shown to the whole nation how much of a cunt he is. Yeah. Having said that, I think the nation knows. I don't think he's hiding it. I think
no, they know.
Yeah, it's part of the problem is everyone else is behind him. So they
in the lead up to that too, though, there's also he tells basically sends his daughter to get on the electric chair, and that's what he's going to film live as well.
That's right.
Yeah. So
shit, I forgot about that.
It's kill it. And she begs him for forgiveness, and he's like, nah, I'm gonna fry you. So it's just really showing his true colours at this point.
Live on air.
Live on air, that's right. And this is where Snake finds out about the Plutopsin 7 virus was actually just a fast-acting kind of flu virus, essentially, which is exactly what Pam Grier's character said. Like, it's not, you'll be fine. It's not, there's no issue with it. So he was basically okay the whole time.
Okay. Having said that,
yeah.
If he was injured in such a way that his immune system was lower to the point, that flu would kill him.
Yeah.
Like, as in, it's the same as like nowadays, and they're saying, oh, well, the coronavirus is just like the flu. It's like, yeah, but when the flu first came out, it killed everyone because we didn't have any immunity to it.
Yeah.
We got to build up that immunity, and that's unfortunately what it took us so long to do, because we didn't get a vaccine until like the 40s, and that happened in 1918. So yeah, but I was thinking that too. I was thinking, so he was like a placebo effect. He was faking, or not faking.
Yeah.
He was inducing the zone, thinking he was sick. But that makes more sense if it's actual flu type thing. So yeah, still cunty. I mean, that's still not. Cool.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So at this point, the president thinks he's got control over the satellites with his little doohickey thing, and he's going to stop the Cuban invasion that's threatening to attack Florida. And he goes to activate the remote, like you said, and that's when it plays the Eddie Map to the Stars intro over I Love LA. And in anger, the president basically orders Snake Plissken to be executed. And this is where we... sorry, go on.
Shoot that snake.
Shoot that snake. But this is where we find out that Snake isn't as he seems, because he's in fact a hologram projector.
He did a total recall.
Yeah, and then Snake...
You think this is the real Quaid? It is.
Get your ass to Mars. Escape from Earth, I tell you.
Yes, escape from Mars.
So at this point, Snake basically he's got the device in his hand, and he basically enters the code 666. Despite everyone else going, "Don't! What are you going to do? It's going to turn all the devices off."
It's going to take us all back to the dark ages. So, we'll be fine.
We'll be right. Yeah.
Hospitals won't.
Here's a candle.
Anyone needs a mine won't.
Yes. So basically, Snake kind of the hologram of Snake disappears because all the technology gets kind of shut down. And I think Michelle Forbes' character is the one that goes, "What are we going to do?"
She said, like, narrating, saying, "He's entering the world code, sir." And it's good because you're seeing the moments of the electrocution thing about to go ahead and everything. Yeah. And when the power goes out, it's not just saying, "Oh, they're realizing the power's going out," but she's saved.
Yeah,
like,
right.
He can't say anything more on the screen. Like, it's almost like the teleportation thing happens for Kurt Russell. It was a very good cinematic choice that puts the emphasis of an EMP a bit more like heavy than we currently see it. Like the fear of an EMP back then would have been so much greater. Having said that, if something on the same scale was to happen to us, I don't know if it would completely wipe memories and stuff like that. As in, it would be an interesting thing, but I think most of the time it would be something pretty easy to reboot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it just reminds me of 2K.
What would happen to a coal power station if an EMP hit? Nothing, right?
Yeah.
It would stop outputting, then it would start outputting because it's still turning over as the coal is burning, isn't it?
So yeah, that would be my
and then you just have to reboot everything that it's attached to.
Yes.
We're back in business.
Yeah, you thought you had us stuff.
Jurassic Park.
So in the final shot, we have Snake. He's a few hundred yards away from where the president and the soldiers are, and they're looking for him. And he finds a pack of cigarettes on the ground. And one of the things he was given was a box of matches, and he uses those matches now. And he lights one of the cigarettes. The box itself is called American Spirit, which is funny. And then Snake basically walks off into the woods as dawn is starting to break, and then he does this kind of look to the camera, and then says to himself, but to us equally, "Welcome to the human race." And we get the close credits.
Nice.
Very
It's a nice. I kind of really was taken aback a bit at how profound that ending was. As in, it took it from going, it's a sort of like shoot 'em up, fun, like The Rock style film,
yes,
Sean Connery, to then going, it's actually saying something about like going put down your phones and live life. Which was interesting. I didn't think that was going to be where it was going to end.
Oh, yes. Who knew Snake Plissken was so eco?
So deep.
Yeah. So like I said, like the movie, like had a budget of 50 million, and it only ever took in half that, 25.5 million. So big box office flop from that point of view. And like, even though like Escape from New York probably made about the same amount actually, but obviously was a profitable film because this one had a lot.
Yeah, because there wasn't the foresight.
Yeah. And essentially got quite panned beyond the box office, but into the critics' corners as well.
Such a shame if you're saying that. It made back the same amount, like than the previous film did. Yet it still was a failure because it it made the same amount of money. It's strange.
Yes. But yeah, so like a lot of critics were saying like it's too much satirizing of the original film and Snake Plissken's character in this, and there's a very campy take on what it was. So it was a big kind of misfire essentially, and it's a shame because like we talk about Snake Plissken and like we have done with Jack Burton as well with the Big Trouble film as well that Kurt Russell also took a hand at, and both these characters were really big iconic characters, and you could see the desire and the need to revisit Snake because he's this kind of enigmatic character. He's straight out of like your classic westerns, is the anti-hero, to a lot of
very much he's like a Mad Max.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah, this complete loner, and it's that sort of, I don't know, he knows what he's got, and you can at least trust that he's going to take care of himself. So if you leave him alone, you'll be fine.
Yes.
But he's also the sort of person that in these sort of situations that like the world is, it's not just the situation he's in, but the world is in this chaotic sort of thing. You would probably be more likely to trust him because he's giving you every reason to know that he's not a threat towards you until you are threatening to him.
Yeah.
But Rotten Tomatoes score says the Rotten Tomato meter says it's at 53%, and the audience score says 39%. I was actually surprised because I thought that the audience score would have been higher. So the critics are saying that it's actually better than the audience is saying, which is strange.
I don't know, because I think the problem is because there's so much love to Escape from New York, and that's why it had reached a cult kind of status. There was a cult following behind it, and I think a lot of people that may well go on to mark their scores on Rotten Tomatoes will be these people that live in that camp, and I think I sit amongst them though, because I was disappointed with this film. I wanted it to be more than just this kind of carbon copy kind of adventure with a few elements thrown in the mix. You kind of want something a bit more fun, but with still a level of grit attached to it, and I think it was missing the grit factor. No,
I don't know, like, because that's what I would have thought, that there would have been a bit more passion for it now, as in because of its campiness, almost.
Yes.
But Yeah, no, like, because I hadn't seen either of them, and so when I'm looking at both of them in order and the specials and stuff like that around it, I was quite surprised how not into it I was.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was that pace or that vibe at the beginning that sort of set me in a world where I wanted to be in a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Where and it wasn't enough. It didn't feel like it was enough in that realm. Kurt Russell, the Ernest Borgnine characters, the Steve Buscemi's, the Pam Greer's, like really were awesome characters to see in that world, but it just didn't feel like the world was complete.
No, it really didn't. Yeah. And
in either film,
there's a lot about LA, right? I have a big thing about LA, and I'm going to deviate again and talk about True Detective for a moment, the series, because the second season, which was also a big flop, was based in LA. And I have this thing where, and I haven't seen the third season, so I can't comment to that degree, but part of what made True Detective, the first season, so good was the way that the land and its setting was part of the character of the series, where it felt like, because it's in this kind of like swampland kind of essentially, and it felt like all the characters that lived there were sinking into the depths of their own past and history, and this kind of murkiness to it, which added this really kind of beautiful layer to it. And one of the things I always said in the second season's defense, even though I wasn't a great fan of it, is that at least and I've forgotten the scriptwriter's name now. I do apologize, Nick somebody. But he kept that same thing with LA as a character in it. And the thing with LA is it's such a sparse city. It's ongoing, and there's no real personality to it because it's so vast, right? And I think that in itself is part of the detriment to this film, is that New York has this kind of its personality. New York, it's a hell of a town. You know,
you're right.
LA doesn't. LA is a very different beast, and so to try and kind of use something to say this is an escape from this place, what does that place represent? And that's why we get these kind of mixed match of, like, you know, it's about surf culture. No, it's about basketball. No, it's about these huge stadium arenas, you know. And it just doesn't feel like it has anything. It's just bits of places, and I feel like that's what comes out in this film.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like I'm thinking of other films, like even like Gatton in what is it, Children of the Corn. You know, that town has a different vibe to it. Silent Hill, that town has a different vibe to it. Denton, like, you know, in Rocky Horror and everything. You know these places when you go to them and stuff like that. And I think that's right. In this, the LA, it doesn't feel any different to where the president is. No. It feels like it's the next stop over. Whereas in New York, you're right. The second that you're there, it's like New York cabbies. It's the Boston, the Bronx, the gangs and stuff. Which also, just I want to make a call back to the Escape from New York, and the guy who's shows him the finger right at the beginning. He reminds me so much of from Fright Night, the guy who is converted his friend, and he's just got his hair up. I left dinner in the oven, or something like that. Very funny.
The Frank Doubleday character. I loved his character. I think I made a reference to it in our podcast of Escape from New York way back when we did it. But to me, the best moment in that is where he gets off the train. The Frank Doubleday character gets off the train carriage, and Adrienne Barbeau's there, and she has this kind of open kind of, you know, shirt with a bit of cleavage, and he does this thing where he kind of looks at her, and then looks like towards the direction he's going in, and he kind of rips open his shirt a little bit and does this strut. It's just like, and I just like, it's so good. Like that was a character actor. You know, he was. It's such a small moment, and I just like, that's perfect. Yeah, like we were saying, to kind of wrap this up, like it's just like a lot of fragmented narrative really, and it doesn't sit and solidify as a film. And that I think is a shame, because I wanted to be there with Snake. I wanted to go on that journey. I wanted to see him in a different adventure again, and I feel this one definitely missed the mark. Would you concur with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was kind of disappointing because I'd seen so many things about it, and was expecting a tiny bit more, and to only get that little bit more at the end, like the last, let's say 20 minutes, or not even 20 minutes, so that last sequence where it's the do-si-do and the handing it over, the whole hologram and the welcome to the human race thing, I thought was good and could have probably been expanded on a bit more, rather than doing pipelines and like basketball routines and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, like, yeah, it seemed to, from the beginning, to miss the mark, because it didn't necessarily have too much to say, whereas the first film had said everything. But even then, losing its identity too within itself didn't really help.
Yeah, that's right. So here's the thing. So like we've had this, we're coming towards the end of or into the latter end now of Carpenter's career, and it does really feel like the wheels are coming off with his career, and like just things don't quite hit the mark, or like tonally things don't resonate as well as he did in his first few films, which is a shame. But yeah. I will ask you the question though, because I always do it with the podcast before we kind of bow out. Would you recommend this to a modern cinema going audience, or do you think it still misses the beat?
Well, like all cases, I think that this is the sort of thing of going, find your audience. Obviously, people who are interested in this will probably seek it out, and that's the good thing about nowadays. We do have the access to be able to see even poor quality videos or uploads of these sort of things. Yeah. Like in the age of Netflix and chill, I mean, it's not going to be that bad to have 3 hours out of your life to see both of them. Having said that, I don't think you're going to you're not going to end that on a good note, or a vibe that's going to give you a positivity or a euphoric journey, like something like Synecdoche or like, that's a bit too extreme, but you know what I mean? Those deep thinking films, or even something like In the Mouth of Madness, which we watched recently, which at the end of you can laugh about, talk about, and say what you loved about how it being fucked up. But this being an adventure film, I was expecting that. I wasn't expecting it to go as far as the pipeline surfing and the basketball routines. Yes. But when we first see Plissken in this and he gets the new garb, I was on board. I was getting ready for it. It's just a shame that, so many sort of unfinished thread lines, especially probably when that Valeria character ends up just getting offed. Like after that plastic surgeon, I was sort of like, oh, okay, well, are they going to come back into it? I was waiting for a showdown moment where something like that was going to happen. It felt it needed a bit more of those sorts of things, coupled with the idea of going, what's the identity for the world itself? It was a shame. I don't know. Yeah, I think it would be a hard sell to a generalized audience going member, unless they were just seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and they were like, hey, do you want to see that thing with Kurt Russell? In which case I would probably recommend Overboard. I don't know.
Overboard,
Which case as well, for those of you who don't know, Kurt Russell's married to Goldie Hawn as well, and they're still married, as to the best of my knowledge, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Well,
and just as we bring it up in everyone, I'd also recommend seeing Foul Play.
We're just going to keep touting that.
Just going to say, everyone.
Oh, dear. All right, cool. Well, I think on that kind of glorious note, we've said all we have to say for Escape from LA. We do thank you for listening, as always, to our podcasts, and do kind of keep coming back as we continue the journey of John Carpenter's films, as we kind of draw towards the last few films along the way. Once again, my name is Saul Moite. I'm the lead surgeon and host of the podcast, and I'd like to extend my thanks to Dr. Richard Lovegrove for joining me on board this one.
Oh, thank you, good sir.
And until then, goodbye.
You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Music supplied by Peter Nezik. For more discussions or podcasts, head over to surgeonsofhorror.com or head over to our Facebook and Twitter sites for the latest news and updates.